Speaking of the executive, President Biden has just made a big move and announced that they will be pausing, temporarily halting, and potentially permanently the approval process for new export projects for liquid natural gas. So this is a big deal. Here's a clip from CNBC reporting on this development and featuring a brief interview clip with the energy secretary from the Biden administration. Take a listen.
Administration temporarily pausing and now pending decisions on the export of liquefied natural gas. New export facilities that do not yet have a permit from the Energy Department will now be on hold during the pause. Officials will evaluate the impacts of LNG exports on energy costs, energy security, and the environment. This new move does not affect current exports or previously permitted facilities that have begun construction. Joining us right now is Energy Secretary Jennifer Granholm. Good morning to you. We've been talking about this all morning. And trying to understand the rationale behind it. A lot of folks looking at this and saying that, you know, exporting LNG has been a great thing for the United States.
Yeah, I mean, we are the world's largest exporter now of LNG, but we have a responsibility at the Department of Energy to ensure that all the authorizations are in the public interest according to the Natural Gas Act. And in order to fulfill that responsibility, since the sort of boom, shale boom, and the exports of LNG have begun, we have undertaken a periodic assessment of what the lay of the land is. The last assessment, though, was done in 2018, and at that time we were only exporting 4 billion cubic feet of natural gas, which is a fraction of what we're doing now. Today we're exporting 14 billion cubic feet. We have another 12 billion cubic feet that are under construction, and a total of 48 billion cubic feet that have been authorized. So none of that is going to be affected. All the stuff that's under construction that's been authorized, none of that is going away. Certainly the stuff that's being currently exported, there's no impact. But it is, we have a responsibility given how much we have authorized and given the lay of the land across the globe, the climate impacts, as well as the question about what's the cost going to be at home. If we're exporting half of what we produce, what is the price impact?
Right. So the super easy version is that the U.S., even under President Biden, has become a huge exporter of liquid natural gas, which is a huge economic opportunity, creates tons of jobs, tons of economic activity, and actually lowers carbon emissions. Because right now, the U.S. barely uses coal anymore, but a bunch of other countries still use coal, which is the dirtiest form of all energy. Natural gas still has significant carbon emissions, but it's way less than coal. So the US has reduced our carbon emissions drastically by switching not all to renewables or anything that's not really feasible right now, but by switching from coal to natural gas. We've also developed a huge industry that Biden has previously bragged about in terms of exporting our natural gas. And that's what these projects are. There's currently a bunch of exporting going on, but future projects to increase the exporting are being paused and potentially permanently put on hold by the Biden administration. This is something that left-wing climate activists really want, and in particular, TikTok climate activists. After Biden approved another project that really, the Willow project, that really pissed off climate activists, that he approved it. So he's trying to win them back, get them back on his side. And apparently several of them have met with top-level Biden advisors in the weeks building up to this. And they did a whole lobbying campaign to try to get him to block these exports because they think it's really bad and they want an end to all fossil fuels. And so now he's actually gone ahead and listened to their demands. Let me play you a TikTok from one of these activists celebrating their massive W.
You're telling me that 415,882 people signed a petition to stop LNG, and the U.S. just announced that they're pausing all LNG proposals for further review until they take into consideration all of the categories we've been talking about this entire time? Yeah! We can change the world when we work together. If you weren't thinking it before, you better be thinking it now. These things really do make a difference, and you do too. Thank you to everyone who signed the petition. Thank you to everyone who listened to us. And thank you to everyone along the Gulf of Mexico that has been pushing for this for years, leading the fight, and continues to do a great job. Celebrate tonight. I'm going to go eat a burrito, take a break, and I'll see you guys when I get back. Thank you.
So that was, again, a lot of words basically for me to take in, but I'm getting the idea that obviously this is a initiative that a bunch of people are taking a part of on TikTok or Instagram. And for whatever reason, the Biden administration is fully under the belief that if they can get TikTok on their side, they'll have like won the youth. I mean, they often pay people on TikTok, by the way. So I'm curious, like, is this an organic thing that took off, or is this like working with the Biden administration to like, this is what young people want and that's what we're doing and we're listening to them? Like, I don't know. It's hard to kind of see through the muck when it comes to this administration. Like, they frequently will invite these kinds of people to the White House. Like, they try to be really cozy with these kinds of influencers. And what's interesting to me is if you are advertising a product on one of these platforms, like you have to write that it's an ad, that you're being paid to promote it. If you're being paid to promote a politician and their agenda, there are no such requirements, which I think are really interesting. So maybe we don't even know. But I guess my question is, like, how organic is this? And if it is, I assume these are just like the same people who go and throw soup at paintings. Like, I don't think these are people, these heavyweight scientists who should be setting public policy, no matter what.
No, they're not. But let's assume that it is organic, just to give them the benefit of the doubt. I don't know if it is, but there definitely is a lot of energy for left-wing climate policies on TikTok and among Gen Z people more generally. Like, it's not totally artificial or anything. So let's assume, for just to be generous, that it is totally organic. It is also incredibly stupid and dumb and wrong. And the whole saga is kind of a hilarious example of why TikTok influencers should not have the ear of top White House officials or be bending their policy dictates. Like, the craziest thing about this is that this is coming from the same climate activists who are talking about how we have an extinction level crisis about reducing emissions. This will increase carbon emissions, almost certainly. Because what are these foreign countries that we're exporting natural gas to? What are they going to do? Are they going to switch to completely solar? No. They're going to do one of two things. They're either going to buy their natural gas from Qatar, from Russia, from China, who have dirtier and less environmentally friendly methods of natural gas production and exportation. And so that will have higher carbon emissions. It's estimated about 40% higher carbon emissions for those countries than for Americans, because we have the cleanest, best technology for how we do it. Or even worse, they're just going to do coal. Coal is on the rise in many parts of the world, which, if you're concerned about climate change, is really bad news. And natural gas is, if you're concerned about climate change, not great news, but a heck of a lot better than coal. They're working like heck to block us from giving natural gas to people who would otherwise use dirtier natural gas or use coal.
And so is that their end goal, that they want everybody to be on solar? Is that why?
They want to end all fossil fuels, and they don't care about how they do it. But what's ironically is they're going to make worse fossil fuels happen instead. But their goal is to end all fossil fuels, yes, which I just find completely detached from reality and naive and implausible. But I do think the climate is an issue, and I do want to reduce carbon emissions, but I just think there's so many better ways to do it, and that these kinds of policies are really stupid. I mean, why are we going to economically hamstring ourselves, destroy jobs, lose revenue, lose opportunities? And actually, you know what's so funny? It's actually not funny. It's really sad. But geopolitically, this is really bad, because a lot of European nations, for example, that would have bought this from us are going to be more energy dependent in the future on Russia.
Russia, yeah.
Yeah. Is that what we want? Or is that what we want? To have them more beholden to Russia as Russia is increasingly aggressive, invaded Ukraine, potentially wants to invade more places. We don't want people to be economically dependent and unable to resist their imperialism. But of course, all of this, natural gas, bad. fossil fuels bad. I mean,
Cited, and it's like and this is why I don't think any of these people should be taken seriously, and it's also why climate initiatives don't get a lot of traction on the right, because they're not serious. Most of the time they're coming through with ideas that will not be sustainable to support the energy grid needs that we have right now, much less the expansion that we should be looking towards for the future. And in doing so, they are going to give everybody a worse quality of life. They're going to make everything more expensive. Who does that hurt, right? Who does it hurt? It hurts the people who already live on the margins that you claim to care about on the left, but you're not thinking about that. You're not thinking about the people who will freeze to death in their homes or die of heat exhaustion because they can't get the energy that they need in order to sustain them. And it's so childish. You don't have to know much about climate policies or science to understand those basic factors. And it is infuriating to me that somebody like me, who again is admittedly just not that into this topic, I'm not that into science, I get really bored with it, even I can wrap my head around the basic consequences of these kinds of policies that they're trying to put in place. And the fact that they can't, or that they don't care, that they do look at them and still don't care, it makes them really off. Like, this is why I cannot take these kinds of influencers serious. I mean, I put them in the same camp as people throwing soup at paint in Europe. It's ridiculous. You're not thinking 2 steps ahead. And the fact is that on the right and in more free market circles, there have been many proposals that would actually move us, as you said, away from dirtier types of fuel into better things that could actually work and sustain us, like nuclear, like natural gas. And they crap on that, right? They aren't even interested in exploring that. They constantly work to shut it down. And yeah, they're going to end up making everything worse one way or another, right? Either going to push people into things like coal and using dirtier types of things than what they would have done otherwise. Or if you do succeed in getting your way, everybody's going to be really poor and have really crappy outcomes when it comes to their basic standard of living.
And it will, I mean, the US could stop all carbon emissions tomorrow. And if the rest of the world kept on as it is, it would barely make a difference in projected global temperatures. Like, I don't know. I guess I've become more pessimistic over the years that we're going to be able to stop anything about climate change. And I've become more convinced we're just going to have to adapt to whatever catastrophes or changes in the environment happen. We're just going to have to adapt. Like, I don't see a way of stopping any of it. And I think these efforts are just incredibly short-sighted. And the hilarious part to me is that it's not even that this will reduce carbon emissions, but has other costs that will outweigh any benefits. That's often the case with these policies. It's that this will literally increase carbon emissions. Almost certainly. Basically, everyone I've spoken to inside the industry, who many of whom are like not hardcore right-wing people. Like they just are centrist. They don't even, a lot of them don't even hate Biden. They just think this doesn't make any sense. Some of them have praised Biden because Biden has not been as anti-energy as people on the right suggest. We actually have reached very high levels of production and exports under Biden. He has done some things that have hamstrung the industry, but it's not been the catastrophe you might think from listening to a Fox News broadcast sometimes for American energy. But this kind of thing is counterproductive. It is misguided, and it's not going to work. And to me, it's just a slightly more, like a little bit more serious than the people throwing paint on the Mona Lisa, or throwing soup rather on the Mona Lisa to protest climate change, which they did this past week. I just loved. I mean, I don't know. What's funny is like, who do they think they're convincing with that? That's one of my favorite things. I would love to meet the person who saw them throw soup on the Mona Lisa and said, gee, I got to start supporting the Green New Deal now. What?
Also, the Mona Lisa is behind glass. I saw her like a year and a half ago. You're not even like hurting the art. I don't know. Not that I want to
doing anything.
Like, so stupid. But the difference between those people and these people is these people have the leader of the modern world listening to them and setting policy based on what they think. I hate it here.
Well, and to be honest, part of the thing that I think is going into this is that Biden is taking a lot of heat from Gen Z for his pro-Israel position. And without wading into the merits of that whole mess again, I'll just say that I think he's trying to compensate for that. He's trying to win back these lefty online TikTok influencers in the hopes that all the young people that follow them will support him again if he does green energy stuff like this or anti-fossil fuel stuff like this. And that will maybe distract them from how mad they are at him about Palestine and Israel and that kind of stuff. I don't really think that's going to work, though.
I don't think so either. I really do think they care deeply about the Palestine issue right now. I also think the people who are not quite as in depth on that issue are literally pissed off about the student debt thing because they feel like he made them a promise that he did not come through on. So I don't think
he did.
Well, yeah, he did. So I don't think this kind of thing is going to win them back. I think it's a pretty desperate stretch, but I think you're right probably in the motivations. Like the Democrats, the Republican Party is in a bad spot, no doubt about it. But the Democratic Party is also in a tough spot where in order to stay in power, they need to continue to have people like Joe Biden who are the like moderate, middle ground types. But the core of their base is becoming increasingly more unhinged. And by unhinged, I mean progressive. And so in order to try to keep those people in their camp, they keep having to like try to make these sort of outreach opportunities to them that are going to fall flat, I think. But I don't know. I really hope both parties like split in two and tear themselves apart in the near future. That would be the ideal outcome for me. But right now, watching them try to do this dance of like both be moderate and also appeal to the crazies is entertaining. I enjoy it.
As long as you don't think about it too deeply, because then the laughter turns to tears. But oh well.